Thus endeth day one for the OpenStack Mountain West Conference. We had a number of really interesting sessions. Again, the panel that I got to attend in the morning or be a part of in the morning was interesting from the perspective of just talking about the future of OpenStack. The sessions that I managed to get some data on or attend in the afternoon, there were two that I thought were interesting. One was looking at platform as a service, and really sort of the shift in how people are looking at application development, application deployment, and what that really means for building OpenStack environments and how OpenStack fits in that space. It's interesting because that's the topic of the panel for day two at 10 o'clock that we're going to be going over, talking about some of those services and capabilities and whether or not OpenStack is really the right platform for it. Just sort of considering what does it mean to deploy containers. What kind of operations do you really have to think about when you're looking at applications and how they need to be mapped into an infrastructure? Really the shift from managing and manipulating parts of the infrastructure to just focusing on the application and describing the desired infrastructure environment instead. So it's a pretty big shift for some folks and for some application environments, and others have found this to be the way to actually get to scale and performance for their systems. The other talk was in terms of some of the capabilities that are now coming into OpenStack and are coming in soon into future releases of OpenStack to support the concept of a pet-based application. OpenStack was originally designed as a cloud-native or web-scale application deployment service, something where potentially the resiliency of any one particular VM wasn't important. And what we've seen, though, is that as people build these clouds, especially private clouds, a lot of the applications that get deployed on top of that don't quite have that resiliency model built in to begin with. And so we see a need to potentially move virtual machines while they're still running from a physical resource onto another one. This is known as live migration. And the reason this is important is not just for the management of pets, but this expectation that if you start a virtual machine, the infrastructure will keep it running. And this comes from, it is really sort of a pet-like mentality. It's something where you're trying to keep this thing alive at all costs rather than saying, well, if that virtual machine disappears, that's okay. I have enough knowledge about my system and monitoring my system that I can just turn another copy on. That's how I keep my resiliency going instead of expecting the infrastructure to always be there. Well, it turns out, though, that there are still plenty of use cases where that live migration capability or the I will keep your virtual machine running unless I have a catastrophic failure of my system is still important to many IT services or IT service providers that are providing service to application deployers. A number of tools have really come into their their best capabilities now in Kilo and beyond, where it's become fairly stable and fairly consistent. And in the most recent releases, as long as you have the absolute latest libvirt, probably even newer than any of the current distributions support out of the box, that latest libvirt supports a set of features that make the migration even more robust, dealing with potentially moving the actual application state over onto a system even before all the memory has been copied. That's one of the things that often keeps a virtual machine from finally migrating over, because the memory keeps being consumed on the old machine at a rate faster than it can be migrated to the new machine. So there's some capabilities to support that, and also some rollback capabilities. And in reality, the number one thing I think is much better documentation on this entire feature set. So that's now in Newton, but anything from Kilo and beyond is actually a pretty decent implementation of this kind of live migration feature. So those were the sort of the highlights for the first day. And tomorrow I'll only be able to attend the first half of the sessions, but I'll also provide another update at the end of that just for those that are interested. Thanks for watching.